we have chosen to have this class is because, well, let me ask you, what is the leading cause of death in this country?
Doctors, I guess, isn't it, or is there something else?
Doctors. Going to doctors, unnecessary surgery, taking prescription medication. So how do you find your way through this mess on your own? That's a tough question. Either you kind of are left with the choice of doing sort of what your doctor says, or sort of going out on your own. And when you go out on your own, there's 50 million choices to make. Which vitamins to take, how much, should you even take them? And so it's a difficult situation. You go on the internet, you find, for any one condition, you find 25, 30, 40, probably more.
It's hard to know who and what to trust.
Mm-hmm. Who do you trust? Well, since no one has ever really treated anybody just like you, there's really no one that you can go to that says, well, here I am. What would you do in this situation? Well, he's going to do what he's done before. It may or may not have worked. Most doctors aren't really set up to do research. You treat a bunch of people, but they're all different. You may do things differently. And so it's very confusing. And so to help you kind of get through this mess, we feel now this isn't something new. This book was, I'm sorry, I've got, this book was written back in the 70s. It's not a new book. The concept isn't new. Chiropractors have been using some form of muscle testing for years. But, you know, generally speaking, chiropractors are sort of second-class citizens. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't get the same respect that quote, real doctors do, even though their training is very similar. And anyway, this was written by an MD, but still, mainly it was, you've got it written, you've got the name in the back of the book. In the back of the last page or so, I wrote down some. Your Body Doesn't Lie, isn't it on that list?
It is.
Yeah. This is a book written back then. It talks about the value of muscle testing, how you do it, and things like that. More recently, the book has been published by another MD with a lot of letters after his name. Power versus Force. This is also written down there, I think, on one of those pages. And this gave it muscle testing more legitimacy. Okay? Excuse me just a minute. The concept isn't new, it's been around for a while. But basically, if you are willing to learn to utilize this phenomena, you'll be able to come a lot closer to finding out what you need and the quantities you need it in. Then, how do most of you pick the vitamins you use? What do you do if you need a vitamin?
Well, I have a good friend who knows more about naturopath
and
homeopathy, so I kind of rely on her. And
yeah, so you rely on her.
Right, reading on some books that I trust, such as Nourishing Traditions, or kind of.
Okay, and so we kind of go to people we respect, their literature we respect, but the bottom line still is we kind of make a guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even the smartest naturopath has never treated anybody just like you before.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of out there. Now, are you familiar with this picture? You've seen it before?
No.
Looks like an eclipse of the sunshine.
Yeah,
almost.
it does. It's kind of a funny looking moon, or sun, though, isn't it?
It's like an eyeball in a cell.
It's a fingertip.
Oh.
Oh, with the energy coming from it, yeah.
This is called Kirlian photography. You put your finger on an X-ray plate, and there's a certain type of voltage they put through it. And this, now you notice in this particular one, it's nice uniform
Yeah.
pattern.
Mhm.
People that use Kirlian photography to analyze health would say this was probably a pretty healthy person. When when you get variations in that pattern, you'd say, but this demonstrates to us that there's energy. Everything has this sort of a pattern. Living things, or if this person died, that pattern would go away. Because the equipment isn't sensitive enough to pick up the energy from an inanimate object like these poles or the chair or something like that. Everything has energy. What did Einstein, what's the big principle that he's probably most famous for?
Relativity?
Yeah, can you tell us what that is?
No.
Yeah, well, basically, in real simple terms, and this is probably as much as I really understand, is that E equals mc squared. Which means, basically, everything is energy. See, he showed that energy over here, if you slow it down enough, becomes what?
Matter?
Matter. That's right.
Hmm.
So energy and matter are basically the same thing at different speeds. Kirlian, what do we call these things? What we call holograms.
It's a three-dimensional X-ray or...
Yeah, it's made with a laser. If you shine a laser, which is basically a one-dimensional light, you shine a laser through an object, and then you put the resulting image, we call that a hologram. And then if you take that hologram, you can cut it into as many pieces as you like, put the laser back through it, and what do you see? You see the whole picture again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, each of us is a hologram. Every cell in our body has all the genetic material that the original cell that we came from has.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talk about stem cells, and we talk about things like the stem cell. Well, we're going to take stem cells and grow new pancreas and new hearts and new kidneys, and that's great. But now they're realizing that we all have stem cells in us. You don't need to get them from some other source. We can just harvest our own stem cells. Because if we put them under the right stimulus, they will grow new body parts. We aren't quite there yet, but it's probably coming. One of these days, if you need a new kidney, they'll draw some blood, and maybe a month later you go back in and get your kidney.
Wow.
Won't that be something?
I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Beater, but according to him, well, they've got that. You know, any part of your DNA will tell you your complete blueprint.
Sure.
And if you want to copy a human brain, you can get a holograph X-ray, and your brain is strange. If you damage your brain, you can, have a big piece of it missing, but it's like mirrors in there, and all the information is still in the brain, even though part of it's gone.
And yeah,
It's
and we
strange
are
how it
learning that
works.
we can regrow brain cells. So for years, the dogma was brain cells don't reproduce. They're just, once they're there, and if you destroy them, you're gone. But now we're learning so it's kind of a race between our ability to kill everybody and our ability to fix people. Don't know what's going to get here first. And so we basically are smoke and mirrors,
Yeah.
But we all have this genetic material in us that has the information we need. Our bodies and our brains are such amazing tools. Well, muscle testing and dowsing is based on a few basic principles. And they are, I kind of summarize them here on the back page. Number one, everything has energy. See, once we think a thought, it creates an energy field, you might say, that is that whatever that thought happens to be. One night I was watching the Discovery Channel or something like that on TV, and these people were in some third world country where they had huts and they had dirt roads, and this fellow, he was two of them, and one would go up to someone they just ran across there and give him a piece of paper and a pencil and ask him to draw a picture. The other fellow was standing over here maybe 50 yards away, and when one person, when the native started drawing the picture, the fellow that was part of the show would start drawing a picture too, and then afterwards they compare the two and they would be very similar.
Wow.
This person just had this ability to sense what someone else was thinking.
Wow.
Now we all have that ability, because once that person decides he's going to draw a house or a coconut or a typewriter, his mind developed the energy, the image of that object, and it went out into the universe. This other person had the ability to sense that. Now we all have that ability. It's just that we haven't developed it, and most of us haven't that type of, that degree of sensitivity. Now, if you believe the Bible, well, the Bible has various examples of Jesus knowing what other people were thinking, but he's a little different level than we are right now. Anyway, everything has energy. Now, our subconscious mind can be aware of any particular energy field if we tell it what we want it to focus on. In many ways, it's like a very sensitive radio you bring into a room, and you want to get a particular radio station, you just have to turn the dial. There must probably are literally hundreds of signals in this room right now. If you have a cell phone with you, all someone has to do is hit the right buttons and your phone will ring. And we can put all the cell phones in the city, in the state, in this room, and with the right signal, so that energy is always here. And it's just like our thoughts, and we've all had the experience where you will hear the phone ring, and before you pick it up, you know who it is? Yeah, how does that happen? Well, because that person's thinking about you. So there is this energy, and our brain can analyze and know these energy fields. The third part, your brain is also totally aware of what's going on in your body. You don't have to think, well, I better blink my eye now, I better take a breath now, I better move, change the way I'm sitting, because if I don't, I'm going to get a bed sore on my bottom. We wiggle our toes, we beat our heart. All this is done automatically. If your blood potassium level goes too low, your kidneys or your brain sends a signal to the kidney to hold on to potassium. If your blood sugar gets too high, your pancreas gets the signal to put out more insulin. All on automatic pilot. You know, if you watch an airplane from the outside on automatic pilot, it's constantly making little adjustments. The flaps are going just a little bit just to keep things on course. That's what your body does automatically. Now, the other thing is your body, your brain has the ability to analyze any energy field that's ever been created, put it into your little computer to see if that energy field is compatible with your current energy field. That's difficult to conceive, but we see what computers can do now. you know, how they scan. I went to do some family history once, and I put a disc in the machine, and the machine scanned 500,000 names in 5 minutes. I mean, I don't know how these things work, but they work, and we all experience it. Okay, the last point that we utilize is that if we say something that is not true, it changes our energy field, and we become weaker. So by putting all this together, we can help people find out what they need and how much they need of it. Now, there's various ways of doing it. In the old days, we called them dowsers, and they'd take a piece of wood, or this is a modern one made of plastic, and before they'd go out to look for something, they'd decide in their mind what they were looking for. And sometimes they'd even put a little sample of what they're looking for on the end of their gadget. There's various tools. This is one type. There's another type some people use. They're called L rods. And they'd hold these like this, and when they found what they were looking for, the rods would cross, and they went beyond it, the rods would come back out.
Mm-hmm.
There's another type with just a nice, long, flexible piece of material, a little weight on the end of it, and they'd go out and look, and when they found what they were looking for, it would start bobbing. Boom, boom, boom. Do any of you douse?
No, but I have a friend that does it, and a girl at high school lost her expensive earring or something. It was gold. The yard of the high school, and when he finally found it, they went like that, and he backed up, and then he looked right down there, and there's where it was. It's amazing.
It is amazing when you see someone do this.
Yeah.
And see, you all have the ability to do that. Well, think about it.
I tried it. It didn't work for
Well,
me.
sure. I give you a new piano, and you sit down at it. Would it sound as good as a pianist, a concert pianist? No, obviously not. And what's the difference?
Well,
He
they
spent
practiced
years.
a little bit.
Yeah, see? Now, some people, you know, it's very frustrating because I like to play the piano. It's very, you know, amateurish, you might say, but I enjoy it. There are people, and I see them on TV occasionally, what they call autistic savants.
Mm-hmm.
They hear a song, they play it.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I mean, not fair, you know?
No, not at all.
And it's the same with this. Some people, it just clicks. They pick up these things and they work.
Yeah.
But for most of us, like most things in life, we have to spend some time, practice, work at it, practice some more, and with time we get better and better at it. See,
This friend of mine, well, like when he was looking for gold, he'd touch some gold with those, and then he'd, you know, go
Yeah.
till he found it.
yeah, and some other people put a little bit there, a wedding ring or something on the end of their gadget or in their hand as they look for it, and there are various ways of doing that.
So is that like a type of, what is it, deep focus and relaxation or something? Just put your mind
Well, I
to
don't
it,
know.
or-
Don't know how it works.
Yeah.
We aren't really sure how it works. Yeah, you can try and analyze it, but someone once said about dowsing and this sort of stuff, the best attitude to have, since we don't really have all the facts, is to have an attitude of benevolent curiosity. I like that term. Since we don't understand it, you know, and we aren't going to tell people to mortgage their house because we're going to go douse them and say you're supposed to. You know, what we're trying to help people do is get a tool that'll help you become healthier and stronger and better. That's all it's for. But you got to practice. You've got to be willing to put in a little bit of time on a regular basis to study, to practice. And we all have the ability to learn to do this. Now, L rods and Y rods and things like this are fun. muscle testing is another way, and for people that don't have someone to work with, you can learn to dowse with just a pendulum. Now, there's nothing magic about this. This is a weight on a chain. You can make them your own. You can find a necklace. You can put a nut on a piece of string. It's just a weight on a string. It doesn't matter. Just, I think it should be something you're comfortable with, that you like the feel of it. You like its characteristics. It's kind of your friend. And
so it doesn't matter what the material is.
Doesn't matter what the material. I have one. My favorite one is crystal. It's just a little circular crystal ball on a chain. I lose it. I just take the other one and go find it. So here again, the L rods cross, the willow stick bends, the dowsing rod bounces. This can be programmed in your mind to follow a pattern. Okay. Now the way it works, the way this works, is that you can take a substance. Consciously, you don't even. This could be wrapped up in white paper. You don't have to read the label, because once I put it in my hand, my brain is aware of what I want it to focus on, the energy field I want it to focus on. Okay? And then my technique, and everybody has their own techniques, and there's books that tell you how to develop your own technique, is I put a little motion into the pendulum. And then if it goes clockwise, that's my yes. If it goes counterclockwise, that's my no. Okay? So just very simple. So I will take this and hold this over this and wait, usually just a few seconds. It's best that you aren't talking to people at the same time. That's okay. But I get a clockwise movement here, which tells me that, yeah, this would probably be good for me. Now, is there a risk in doing it this way? Well, sure there is. But is there a risk in taking this? Oh, if I took the whole bottle 2 or 3 times a day, maybe. It's got a very nice safety margin. But you have to keep in mind that anything can be dangerous. I don't know if you saw this article in the paper a week or so ago. They had some contest. They were going to give away a water contest.
Yes.
Oh, who in the world? Anyway, they did it, and somebody was silly enough to go do it. And she killed herself drinking water. Now, that's the second time I've read about that. The first time was much greater quantity of water in about an hour. But you can actually upset your minerals, or you can actually bleed to death if you drink enough water, because your blood becomes very dilute, and so that water moves into the red blood cells, and they swell and pop. Anyway, so, but relatively safe, yes, you know. And so then the nice thing about this tool is we all have people in multi-level marketing. And oftentimes they approach us because their job is to find as many new customers as possible. So it kind of consumes their life, you know. Tell me about your Zango or your noni juice or your coral calcium, or, you know, just, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. But if it's just your best friend and they say, oh, you ought to do this, most of us look at it and say, well, okay, I'll try a bottle, because we don't want to offend them. With this, we can say, let me test it first. And you can test it. If it tests good, maybe you should take it. If it tests bad, you can blame it. You know, it looks real good, I'd like to help you, but it's not good for me. So it gives you an excuse.
Does that work for everybody usually?
It works.
Okay. I mean, if you did the same bottle again another time, it'd still go clockwise?
Well, maybe a month later it might not, because I'm not the same person a month later.
Okay.
See, very few things in life are static.
Okay.
Yeah, it works.
Oh, okay, good.
And the problem is us. And see, I really think it's sort of like, my philosophy is that to be healthy, you don't need import oranges. You don't need to import pineapple. Or this time of year, you don't need grapes. I think the world's put together, so everything we need to be healthy is in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley.
Yeah, in the season that it grows, too.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of things we don't do right. We don't eat whole foods, and the foods we do eat they aren't raised very well, and so there's a lot of problems with that. But basically, that's the principle. Mm-hmm. So I also believe that we have within us the ability to know what we need. Mm-hmm. It's been smothered to a great extent because we don't learn the techniques. There was a doctor, though, that felt that you can determine what you need by the smell of the stuff. And he developed a technique where you'd smell something, and if it smelled good, you'd take it. If it didn't smell good, you wouldn't take it. Now, a lot of people have trouble with sense of smell, so that doesn't always work. But this does work. It's a tool you can use to help you sort through this avalanche of information that comes at us. So we have this. Now, the advantage of the pendulum is that you can do it by yourself. You don't need anybody to help you, and it's just you and the pendulum. And what your point was good. This is a B12. Now, if I might test that I need 2 of these today, in a week my body chemistry may be different. I may need 1, or I may need 6. Probably even changes quicker than that. But for these things, I don't recommend people test themselves every day, although some people do. I say those people, you better get a life. Find something worthwhile to do.
How would you tell the quantity that you need?
The same way. So first you tell, is it good for me?
Yeah.
And then I don't like questions. I like statements. Questions aren't true or false.
Okay.
Oh, they can be, but I like statements. So I just say this is good for me, and I see what it does. And usually within a few seconds I get, see, this is yes. Now if I say I need to take 6 of these a day, I get a no.
Oh. Wow.
Your brain can tell you almost anything you want to know.
Wow.
So then you play around. I say I need 2 of these a day. You can say that. Yeah. And see, with just a few seconds. And then I say I need 3 of these a day. No. See, so I can do that quicker than I can read the label. And once I read the label, what do I know? I know it's in here. That's about all.
So you can do that for other people then?
No.
No.
That's
what
mind your own business.
Okay, gotcha.
The exceptions to that rule are if it's an infant,
Oh,
sure.
if it's a very young child, or if it's a very sick person. People should. This is. I feel, I personally feel that this is creeping over sort of this line that pushes more towards a Ouija board type activity.
That's what I was going to ask you earlier.
See, I think it's the same basic energy. I feel that things that are very powerful and very useful are also easily abused. Now, if we think about what things in this world, what are things that are frequently abused? Drugs, but even more frequently than drugs.
Alcohol? Well,
as far as foods go?
Pardon?
As far as foods go?
No, just human nature. Money, power, sex, food. See, all these very powerful things that we all need. But if you get too much, what do they say? If you read the history of people that win the lottery.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
yeah.
Most of them don't live very long.
Luck.
And I can't. Some couple down in Oregon won an obscene amount of money. $200 million. And of course they were celebrities. Now you wonder why the celebrity anyway. And so some show back east wanted them to come back and just be on the show people who you're on. Well, they said, oh sure, we'll come back, but you have to, number one, hire a charter jet for us. You have to put us in the best hotel. You have to provide limousine service. You got $200 million.
Yeah.
So it didn't take very long for them to go to maybe the average Joe to all of a sudden they thought they were celebrities too. Anyway, and so I think this is something for your use, your benefit. So don't try finding out what he needs or your kids need. Teach them the principles and let them learn to use it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious because, like, you just picked up, basic bottle of B12. So I thought, well, did you go around the room and tell us if it was good for us? And
Well,
I mean,
I-
it's just kind of a simple type thing. That's why I was curious.
We could do
about
muscle testing. Now that's same basic energy you're using our brain, but it's with the help of someone else. Now everybody doesn't have someone they can muscle test
Yeah.
with, so you can. Some people say you can do to muscle test yourself, but I don't believe that because I think if the muscle I'm using to test another muscle is weak, then the other one will be weak too, and I just don't think, anyway, I don't feel comfortable with it. So, but if someone else says I use it and it works for me, great, that's fine. But muscle testing, there's some advantages with both ways. Muscle testing is you have a second opinion. And what we can do, we'll demonstrate here. Just why don't you step up here just a minute? We'll do some muscle testing.
I don't seem to have too good a luck at testing my wife, but
Well, that's
might
because
work on me, I don't know.
you haven't practiced enough.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
works. Yeah.
I've seen it used before.
Yeah, okay. Well, see, it's just a matter of practice. And like sometimes you get into a situation, a couple, one person doesn't really believe in it. They think, and you don't get the same sort of
Well, that
cooperation.
might be part of it.
Yeah. And so you do the muscle, you learn to use the pendulum, and eventually they may come around and want to try it. But let's just show you. Now, before we muscle test, I encourage people to try and put their brain in neutral gear.
Okay.
See, now your job is to try and not be thinking strong, benevolent curiosity.
Okay.
Another little trick, you can either tap your thymus gland here, which is right up here under this little notch. Just a few 6 or 8 gentle taps. You can do this. Hold your arms out like this, and then bring your arms together, interlocking the fingers. Something about that puts the two hemispheres. Each of us have a little dominance, either left brain or right brain, and this kind of tends to balance them. Okay, then you stand in front of the person. Now, any muscle will work, but this one is convenient. It's usually relatively strong. But if someone's in bed and they got an IV over here and they got a cast over here, you can use a leg. You can do it. You can hold their arm up here and push down, or you can hold up here and push down. It doesn't matter. It's best to practice with a certain muscle group until you get comfortable doing it, and then you can expand. But it isn't the muscle any more than it is the pendulum. Okay, so you stand in front of the person. I want you to run on camera so we get full. And you hold your arm up like this.
All right.
Now quit turning on me here.
Oh.
You probably move furniture in the house too. Okay, you put your arms straight out the side.
Get this a little bit more over here. Okay.
That's
All right.
fine. Okay, now it isn't a contest to see who's the strongest. It's just how strong does the muscle feel right now? What do I think of that? What does he think of that? So we just keep your arms straight out your side.
Okay.
I'm going to push very briefly. Your job is to be as strong as you can. And don't look at my eyes when you do it. You just look at something neutral.
Look at the
chair
camera.
over here.
Okay, so I just warn him I'm going to push. I say resist, you hold it strong, and I push for 1 or 2 seconds. Okay, that's all there is to it. Now we know what he feels like.
Okay.
Now I want you to say out loud, my name is John.
My name is John.
Okay, resist now. What has happened?
Oh, you are able to push it down
Yeah.
easier, aren't you?
Yeah.
Huh.
What does that tell us?
He's lying.
Huh.
He's not John. Okay, now my name is Charles. What's your name?
My name is Dan.
My name is Dan. Just say that.
My name is Dan.
Okay, resist. Is there a difference?
Yeah.
There is, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we both have
That's
2 opinions.
amazing.
Uh-huh.
We get 2 opinions. We agree.
Huh.
So now the next thing is, see, I'm going to give you something to see if it's good for him. I sell this, and if I sell it to him and he sells it to someone else, I'll make more money.
Sure.
Does he need it? I don't know. He doesn't know. So we're going to find out. He doesn't even have to know what it is.
Okay.
Because
He
once
doesn't, does
we
he?
put it in his
I
hand,
won't even look at it.
doesn't matter if you do or not. But I just didn't, because you won't know what it is anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
But once we put it in his hand, the unique energy
Got a
field,
green label on it.
the unique energy field of this supplement is known to his brain. All we're doing is focusing his brain on that. So you say out loud, this is good for me.
This is good for me.
Okay? Resist. You stay strong or go weak.
It seems to be staying strong.
Yeah. Now, if we aren't sure, if he says, well, I think I'm stronger, and I think you're weaker, we just reverse. We say, this is not good for me.
This is not good for me.
Okay? Resist. No question. See?
Wow, that's amazing.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it is good for him.
Huh. Okay.
Now, what do we want to know next?
What is it?
No, you don't even need to know that.
Turmeric root powder,
The
bromelain,
dosage.
ginger root.
Pardon?
The amount.
The amount. So let's find out.
Oh,
See?
okay.
I need 2 of these a day.
I need 2 of these a day.
Okay? Resist. I
Huh?
need 6 of these a day.
I need 6 of these a day.
Okay? Resist.
Well,
I need
let's-
4 of these a day.
I need 4 of these a day.
Okay? Resist. Yeah.
Oh.
See? 30 seconds.
What is this?
It's just a sort of a heart supplement. See, and so that's basically how it works.
I was curious about something with the fields and all that about, okay, I mean, even though with the understanding that we don't know and what you mentioned about benevolent curiosity, so I can kind of understand, I think, about it having its unique energy field. But the dosage, if you don't know, if your brain can't,
Your
if you
brain
can't
does
see,
know.
even without seeing the separate capsules or the
See,
tablets.
this is so unique in the
There's
universe.
an energy field that's
Mhm.
around that, I guess, right?
This is so unique, and there's nothing quite like Life Extension Herbal Cardiovascular Formula. Once it was created with a certain amount of ingredient in each capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And so even that energy is in the universe.
Okay.
So once you test this, and then you want to know specifically, your brain can tell you
Somehow the brain can tell the size
how
of the
much is
capsule.
in each capsule.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's your brain. That's what you've got up there. That's why it's so tragic when kids use drugs and,
Oh yeah.
and do these crazy things to their brain because they never work the way they should anymore.
Yeah.
Never. These kids think, well, I can just smoke a little pot regularly. Things aren't the way they should be. You screw up. It's like putting a little coffee in just a corner of your computer on your keyboard. You know,
Wow.
there are certain functions you just aren't going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you sit down a minute? Now,
Okay.
I'm not sure if everybody wants to be on your film, so maybe
It
when I
doesn't-
test the other people, you
Yeah,
might
I can turn it off. if
Yeah,
you
just
want
turn it
to.
off.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, just
I don't know.
It's a
How far
there's
to
all
go
these
besides
privacy
maybe
issues.
the neighbors.
Yeah. Well, I like everybody just to kind of experience it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Got a baby here?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, so,
When you get to me, it's wait.
okay, I won't say it to you. But we can test the baby or we can test her.
Wow.
It depends on what we want to do.
Hmm.
See,
That's neat.
How could you test just the baby?
by thinking I want to test the baby.
Oh, okay. I see.
Wow.
See,
Oh,
our
that's interesting.
computers will do pretty much whatever we want them to. That's why people can heal themselves often by using sort of brain games like guided imagery and you know, but we just aren't, it's hard to train your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to sit down and get your brain to do a specific task unless it's something like, okay, I've got to do this crossword puzzle, I'm going to do so many rows on this knitting, but it's hard to get it to think in a certain way over an extended period of time. And so it's a challenge, it's a struggle, and people that try to do this, it can be very exhausting.
So if you've done something else prior to that, like some sort of other type of relaxation, deep relaxation,
It would probably
meditation,
work
would that
better.
kind of help better for
That's
you?
right. If you did some relaxation or if you did some meditation or imagery, Are you familiar with guided imagery?
I'm not there yet. I do biofeedback.
Okay,
I'm
that's a
I'm
form of
learning that.
biofeedback. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's.
it's been great.
Okay, so just do a little tapping
It's
here.
hard work.
Okay. Yeah, it is hard work.
I mean, you have to practice.
Biofeedback is what he's just doing with me, isn't it?
Well, sure, it's a form of
Oh,
biofeedback.
there's other ways.
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots of different
Yeah.
biofeedback.
Okay, so now you just hold your arm up here like this.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's like a deep
Now,
focus.
I'm going to push down. You resist.
Okay.
Just be strong. Okay. Just 1 or 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll say my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Okay. Resist again.
Okay. That's funny.
It isn't funny. It's amazing. My name is Myra. What's your name?
Claudia.
Claudia?
Uh-huh.
Okay, just say that.
My name is Claudia.
Okay. Resist. Hold. You sense the difference?
It's hard to.
You don't sense that difference? I do. My name
Okay,
is
did
my
you?
name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Okay. Resist.
Mhm. Okay. Yes, I do sense
My
it.
name is Claudia.
My name is Claudia.
Resist. You'll be strong.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely a difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we do the same thing maybe with something like this.
Okay.
This would be good for me and my baby.
This would be good for me and my baby.
Okay. Resist.
Oh.
This would not be good for me or my baby.
This would not be good for me or my baby.
Okay. Resist.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, I definitely sense a difference.
This would be good for me.
This would be good for me.
Resist.
Mhm.
You sense?
Yes.
I do too.
Wow. Folic acid.
B12 and
Vitamin
folic acid.
B12 and folic.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. See, come on. Have you done it before?
No.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, I'll be a little more challenged. I have chronic fatigue, so my arms don't stay.
Well,
That's one of the
okay.
things I have problems with, just to give you.
Must be one of the parts of biofeedback you haven't done then so much, huh? This
No,
one
because
again?
the type I'm doing is like a pain relief type thing, and it's relaxation tapes, and it's getting into the focus and just clearing your mind, and it's like
different.
more stress type,
Okay.
to kill stress. So
Okay. Same sort of thing. Balance your brain.
okay,
Like this.
okay.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, same sort of thing. Arm out here like this, just one arm. I'm going to push. Your job is to resist as hard as you
Okay.
can. Just be strong. Come on, hold it up. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now my name is
Pete.
My name is Pete.
My
So,
name's Pete.
Okay. Be strong.
That is
Wow.
wild.
My name is
Joan.
My name is Joe. Resist. Be strong.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That is amazing.
It is.
Totally
It's
amazing,
It's
yeah.
totally, but it's like, it's like all of a sudden, we're 200 years ago, and here someone hands us a laptop or a camera, a digital camera, we'd say, that is amazing.
True.
But it's just a different. We just aren't familiar with it. We
I
just.
want to try that B12
Well,
folic
come
acid
on.
thing. I'm really curious because I do take that, and I was curious. My doctor was telling me it's bad for me, and it's like, no, it is good. But
What is bad for you?
oh my God! One of my doctors, he told me how bad it was.
This
Yeah.
is. B12
Yeah,
folic
and
acid?
I do injections, so I'm just
Okay.
curious. Okay,
Okay. Just be strong. Just say this is good for me.
this is good for me.
Okay. Resist. Hold it. You're so strong.
Okay. Oh, maybe it is bad for me, yeah.
Well, say. Let's say this is bad for me.
Okay, this is bad for me.
Okay. Be strong.
Huh.
You're stronger with it.
Well, it's because I've been sick all week too.
Yeah.
And I do have the
I
fatigue
think you-
factor, so I can only
Yeah.
do it like so long.
Okay. With this fatigue time, let's try something else.
Okay.
Okay, hold your arm up.
Okay.
Gluten is good for me.
Gluten is good for me.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
You're strong.
Oh no.
Chronic fatigue, much of it is allergies.
Oh yeah, and I've really got nailed lately.
Wow.
All at
Yeah.
once, almost every single thing in my
No.
house,
Wow.
chemicals, everything.
Quite a bit of
The
disease
air.
comes just from taking aspartame, the sweet.
Oh yeah, there's a long list with aspartame
I mean,
too.
serious
But I'm
disease.
assuming most people that come here don't drink aspartame.
No.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna
mostly.
assume that. Yeah. Okay, now the other thing is, it's kind of fun to do if we go back in here and there's ways to get ideas about what parts of you may not be working the way they should.
Okay.
Like this afternoon, we tested a fellow, and he had a heart weakness, even though he, from all practical purposes, he didn't have any symptoms. But see, this, if people would use this method of analyzing themselves, they would pick up things at a very early stage before they get to the. See, our technology in picking up these problems is very primitive still. Even though we're much better off than they were 50 years ago, we're still, say, disease shows up when the problem gets to be 100. Well, then 50 years ago, you had to get to 200 to get disease. We'd recognize it. This helps you get it when it's a 10 and a 20. And that's why if people would do this, unfortunately, we all kind of have the philosophy, well, I feel okay, I guess I'm okay. People come in here all the time and say, well, I was really healthy until I had my heart attack. No, you weren't healthy until you had your heart attack. It's like sort of like driving your car and you never look at the tires. You say, well, my car is just fine. Then you have a blowout and you say, well, a mile ago my car was just fine. No, it wasn't. The tires were terrible. You just didn't look at them. See? And so with this, and then using some of these techniques here, I've got some points here. You can focus on different parts of your body and test. Or you can just write on a piece of paper, heart, lungs, kidney, and test it. Put your finger on it, on the word, just to help you focus, and test. My kidneys are healthy. My kidneys don't need any help.
What about with the pendulum? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Sure you could. You don't need to even hold it over your head.
Can somebody else hold it over
No,
your
you
head?
don't need
You need
to.
to do it yourself.
You do it yourself by
My kidneys are...
writing kidneys on a piece of paper and saying my kidneys are healthy.
Oh, okay. On the paper, and then you
On
hold
the
that over
paper.
the paper. Okay.
You can draw a picture of kidney if you want, but once you say kidney, your brain knows what you're talking about.
One other thing, nowadays they saying too much vitamin E is bad for you. Did you ever test anybody with vitamin E? Because it used
Sure
to
we
be
do.
that you needed, like 3 a day for some people, and now they say you can't take more than 1 or 2.
It depends on
I
which
mean,
day of
there's
the week.
some-
I think between E and C,
See-
they're doing
see-
it. Oh.
Sure, you can take too much vitamin E. You can drink too much water.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the danger is much greater that we aren't taking enough than it is that we're taking too much. Now, whenever people say you need 60 milligrams or 72 milligrams, it's wrong. The reason they do that is to simplify their life. Every one of us, what if they had a shoe store, they had only size 7.5? We laugh.
Right.
But that's what they do with this stuff. We say you need 200 a day. Who's you? We're all different.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't all fit in that range.
And we're
just
gonna be
like with
different,
blood
and-
test range.
Our shoe size changes every week. See? And so anytime anybody, whether it's the doctor or your lawyer, says everybody needs this. No, that's not right. Sure, everybody needs to breathe, and everybody needs water, and everybody needs to sleep, and that sort of thing. Sure, there are a few absolutes, but when it comes to what we eat or the supplements we take, there's no fixed vast amount. If she's pregnant, are her needs the same as this lady's? No. See? Everybody needs to drink 2 quarts of water a day. No. Everybody's cholesterol should be under 200. No. See?
Not true.
Those numbers and those sayings are there to make the doctor's life easier.
Yeah.
Because I can just tell you, take 200 milligrams a day. Whether you're my little old grandmother or my 18-year-old son. See, it's ridiculous. There's nothing scientific about it. But yes, to answer your question, yes, you can take too much vitamin E. And I think people are going overboard. Some people think, well, if I take a little bit more, I'm going to be better off. I think it's relatively safe, but I think people waste money.
Mm-hmm.
And so your need will be different than your wife's, and that's why this is so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you can take too much, but and you know, if the bottle says take 6 and you test you only need 4, you've saved yourself 30% of the cost.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
And too often what happens is that people take vitamin C, for example. That's such a good example. And everybody, they say take 1,000 or 500 milligrams a day. Well, then they still get colds. They still get, you know, whatever.
It's not
And they
enough.
say, well, it doesn't work. No, it works. You just didn't take enough
Or long enough.
or long enough. That's right.
Stayed with it or whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody is
The recommended
drastically different.
the recommended daily allowance, the government figure for vitamin C is to keep you from getting scurvy. Linus Pauling's amount will keep you from getting heart disease and cancer. Now, which do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that way throughout all these vitamins. See? We just learned folic acid. 20 years ago, someone said, gee, there's this birth defect called spina bifida, where the backbone doesn't and the nervous system doesn't mature all the way down. It's a very difficult disability because they have trouble with their bowels and their bladder and walking, all sorts of problems. Someone came along and said, gee, if you give these women a nickel's worth of folic acid, they won't have this. Oh, the doctors hemmed and hawed and poo-pooed it and said, let's see further studies, and let's blah, 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 blah. 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years go by. And finally they say, well, okay. When hundreds more kids were suffering, the cost of taking care of a spina bifida baby is hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a lifetime problem. And yet they wouldn't increase the folic acid recommendation for years. It's tragic. And it's going on today just like it did 20 years ago. Different substance. It's going on just as readily as it was then.
I was wondering with amounts, because the vitamin C that I have is the amla berry one.
It's
Is it
which?
Amla berry. It's also known as Indian gooseberry.
Okay.
It's a natural source, but it's a powder.
Okay.
It's not capsule form. So with something like that, would it be where you'd measure it out beforehand? and
Well, you could
fill
just
it
say,
up,
it
or-
usually says if you take a quarter of a teaspoon, it's this
Right.
many milligrams.
A quarter teaspoon up to a teaspoon is what it says.
Well, usually it'll say how many milligrams are in a
Right.
quarter of a teaspoon. So you could either say, I need 1 teaspoon a day or a quarter of a teaspoon a day, or I could say I need so many milligrams a day, and then just transport that into the amount you need to put in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And somehow your brain just,
Your brain can figure it out.
wow. It's amazing. Okay.
Well, it is amazing, but it's very reasonable that there would be a tool to help you do that, because it can make a tremendous difference in the kind of person you are and the way you feel. So I don't think God just gives us good luck.
Right. No, absolutely.
I think there are
agree.
tools we can use if we are willing to put in the time. There's no other way.
Absolutely. That's why I believe with the home birthing too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you have to be, not everybody can home birth. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take your herbs and take good care. You can't just eat a bunch of junk and expect to have a nice home birth.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's true. It's very true.
So anyway, okay. So then you should check the major acupuncture meridians at least. Check your large intestine, check your nervous system, check your circulation, and your allergies, and your glands, and just you can do that either by touching this spot on you, or putting the word down and doing the pendulum.
Okay, so like he said with the kidney, so like if you were to go put your
Like if you
hand on
say
the kidney and then
thymus, even though you don't know what your thymus is, well,
Your
it'll
brain
still do
does
it.
know.
Oh, okay. All right.
See,
All right.
that's right. Do you understand how your car works?
No.
Do you understand your TV or your cell phone? No, we don't understand how those things work. We have learned, though, that if I push the right button, I get a nice benefit. See?
Okay.
So understanding is kind of a bonus.
okay, so him with he said the kidneys, so what, I'm gonna try to get this down right. So, you could write, you said write the word or whatever, and then you kinda hold up that little.
You can do that if you want to.
Or how would he do that?
Do you have her permission to form?
Oh, is that
I
okay?
don't care.
Okay, all right.
I just, you know,
Next week
some
I'm
people
gonna
get.
change my
Oh, it's-
persona anyway.
Okay.
I just,
No, I
some
don't
people are
mind
very,
that.
very
Makes it more
sensitive about it.
interesting if
Yeah.
you can
Oh,
see
sure
the
it does.
person
But
talk.
I'm just saying,
Okay.
you can do it anyway. If you're with muscle testing, you can put your hand on the kidney point. You could write the word kidney on a piece of paper. All you're trying to do is, you could just say in your mind, kidney, 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 kidney. But you have to say it out loud because you said it subconsciously. Your mind would probably say a whole lot of other words in there too. Our minds are very difficult to control.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you've all heard that. Do not think about a pink elephant for the next 5 minutes. See?
Good luck.
No, see, and so when we say it out loud, it's much more difficult to think of anything else while we're saying the word. But it's even better, I think, to write it on a piece of paper, or have it on a piece of paper and put your finger on it, because then your mind is you're telling your brain what you want to know. You're hitting the key on the computer that has the function of doing this particular thing.
Yeah, it's like kicked into focus to me.
Yeah,
It's like
your
focus
scanner has
is
gone through all those billions of possibilities and gone to the kidney possibility.
So you can basically do this on any body part?
Sure you can,
Wow. That is good to know.
but you don't go home and,
Go crazy?
go crazy. You learn to use these tools first on
Yeah.
simple things. Yeah. And then, for example, well, come up here, Dan. Let me just show you another of what you can do. Okay, so let's just test his heart. Okay?
No, I like this, okay.
Okay, so just hand out here again.
All right.
Just now, I want your arms straight out from your side like this. I want it consistently there because then we're doing the same test.
Okay.
Okay, just resist. I'm going to push. Okay, he stays nice and strong. Okay, so where's the heart point? I think it's right here. If you look on your chart, they're right under the end of the breastbone. So it'll be right about here on him. Okay, so we're going to just touch yourself right there. I think you're a little high. I think you come right down. See that little bump there, right
Okay.
underneath that. Okay, now just resist. Be strong. Okay, not quite as strong, is it?
Not quite. No.
Yeah. Okay, now, we want to know if this is good for his heart.
Yeah, we do want to know that.
So hold that.
Very
Now
curious.
touch yourself there again.
Okay, let me find the right spot.
Okay. Now resist again. Hold it. I think that's stronger. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we find. Now let's look at this one. Here's another heart remedy. Let's see if this works as good.
Let's see.
Okay. Just resist again. Hold it.
That's interesting.
So do you have any heart problems, should we ask?
Well,
Not that I know. of.
everybody does, to some degree. Everybody over 50's got a little bit of a problem. But
Old age, I guess.
well, that's part of it, yeah, as we get older. Now, there's 2 heart remedies. Now, how would he know which one to take?
Exactly.
He tests.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I'm saying. If I've got a car that's 10 years old. Do I have any carburetor problem? Well, it still runs pretty good. But I'll bet if someone really looked over my carburetor, they'd say, oh, you probably ought to have it rebuilt. But it's still running pretty well. But it's a little different with our bodies. Too often the scenario is, I was feeling pretty good. I was on the way home. I started feeling pressure in my chest. I went to the emergency room, and now I've had bypass surgery.
Yeah. Which direction is that going? The right way, the wrong
It's
way?
going
Going the right way.
clockwise.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is something, isn't it?
It is. Now,
just
even if
putting
it
it to
didn't,
the test.
even if, well, that's not a very good test because it's probably the first or second time you've ever done that.
Oh, okay. It
Yeah.
takes practice too, huh?
Yeah, well, it may work well for you. Maybe
Okay.
a guy that can just, that's fine.
Okay.
It may work real well, real quick. I don't know. But if it didn't work, then I wouldn't throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need to practice more.
The piano works. It's the guy trying to play it that has to learn. Yeah. So you go home and you practice and you fiddle around and you say, you test your heart and your spleen and your liver and your gallbladder and you say, oh, my gallbladder's a little off. So then you look around, you maybe go to the health food store and you look through the gallbladder remedies and you find one that may get it stronger. Now, in my feeling, that's preventive medicine. You don't wait till you get a gallbladder attack.
Right.
You don't wait till you have, someone says you got a polyp in your colon. You don't wait for those things. You just do these things with the assumption that we're all going to die and we're all getting older, and none of us have done everything we need to do to keep ourselves healthy. That's a great tool. It's just, but you got to use it. You know the adage, people that don't read have no advantage over people that can't read. The people that don't use this have no advantage over people that don't know about it.
Right.
So go home and play around with it and experiment with it. If you have questions, call me or read one of the books or.
Will you do the heart thing on me?
Sure.
I'm very curious. Come watch our little guinea pig over here, and I find it interesting.
Well, see, most of us, half of us in this room are going to die of heart disease. That's just the statistic. 25% of us will die of cancer. And where? In men it's prostate and colon, and women it's colon and breast, and so since we know those things are very, very common, why not do something and focus and check that part of our body on a regular basis? Don't wait for the doctor to say, oh, you better have a pap smear or a PSA or a mammogram. Okay. A lot of people don't want that responsibility. A lot of people, oh, it's too scary. I don't want to be the one well, okay, then you turn it back over to the doctor and okay, let's just do a blank, we might call it. Okay, you just hold your arm up. Just resist, be strong. Okay. Now, right beneath the bottom of your ribs.
Okay. Just kind of hold right there.
Yeah, just touch it there. Okay, resist, hold strong.
That's kind of a given.
Well, not necessarily. So we have the same two remedies. Let's see which one might work best for
Okay,
her.
and I just kind of hold the same
Yeah, just
spot.
hold it there. Okay, resist again. Hold it.
Okay.
Now, what we really want to know is not only if this is good for you, but is it better than this?
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Just resist again. Hold it.
Oh my God.
No, they're both good. They're both good stuff.
That one is better.
But see, this was better for. We're different.
Yeah.
That is so.
Something,
I
isn't it?
know.
That is.
One's better for me.
Okay,
one's
so
better
which
for
one's
them.
this one? That's
Yeah.
Hawthorne.
This
Which one
is-
did he have? He had
This is mainly an herbal thing. It's got
Yeah.
things ginseng, hawthorn, motherwort. But anyway, it's got a variety of different
kind
things.
of. That's
This is-
extremely interesting.
Anyway, this is we're different.
Yeah, I thought it was
But
neat just because, why
but there's no way we can
see the difference.
look at people and say, oh, this is what you need. What people end up doing, the life extension people sell you this, the planetary people sell you this, because that's their product. So, and they're both good companies. They're both good products, but we aren't standardized.
I notice when you go to the doctor, different ones, and don't ask which ones because I can't remember. I've been to so many, but they're always doing something with you, trying to make your.
Oh, well, you must have a chiropractor or a naturopath or something like that, because the regular doctors don't do that.
No.
Well, I've had my regular doctors. I think it's like the rheumatologist and the neurologist.
They do muscle testing?
Well, they don't call it that. They won't tell me that, but yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah, the more people that do this, the better off. Now, one other thing I want to cover before we... Sometimes you get a list of, say you need adrenal gland support, or your cholesterol's high, your heart, you have trouble. And so you go online, or you go to a doctor that does more natural stuff, and here's a list of things you should be taking for this. 20 things.
Yeah.
Where do you begin with? I mean, which one's most important? So what you do, one way to help you You could just go down the list and muscle test them all or pendulum them all, but a way I think is much more effective, let's say you think there's a list of 20 additional things, you think, well, maybe 3 or 4 of them I could handle, but, or maybe just one. One of these things maybe, so which one's most important? So here's how you do that. You make yourself a little graph. And you put a little square in there for each one of these items. And you just number the things on the sheet, and then you put that a number in each one of these little squares. Okay? Once you do that, your brain knows what this represents.
Really?
Because you have made that association. It's just like you hit Control S, and what happens on your computer? It remembers it. Okay? That's what you're doing when you write it down. Then you take your finger and muscle test it with your pendulum and say, the most important thing for me out of this group is in this upper half of the graph. And if it tests strong, then you say, the most important thing is one of these 4. Nope. The most important thing is one of these. Yes. The most important thing is one of these 2. No. The most important thing is one of these 2. Yes. The most important thing is number 2. Yes.
Wow.
See, that's your number 1. And then you go about figuring out what dose you need. And then if you say, well, maybe I can handle one more, you do the same thing over everything. The next most important thing for me is here. And then just do the same thing. So I think that prioritizes things and is quick. You understand what I did? You just make a little graph, a little grid, and let your computer, I've got a computer program in here that does the same thing, but you don't need a computer to do it. You just use the one you have. And that's half the battle. You know, I see people that come in with, you know, diabetes and heart disease and cancer, and they've got 50 choices. It's so hard to figure out which one's best for them. So like I said earlier, that's why most doctors have a protocol. You come in to me with cancer, I give you this, this, and this. You come in to me to buy shoes, you get a size 7. We all laugh at that, but then we go to the doctor and that's what happens to us, and we think it's very scientific. It's not scientific, it's making it easier for me. It's protocol, it's standardization. And we think it's bad now. Wait till we get these government programs in medical care, or you're really going to get a rubber stamp then.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, now a couple other things I've included in here is on the very back page or close to it. There's an address about a catalog called Acres. It's a book service. Right at the bottom of one of those pages. Yeah, there, right down the bottom. It's got 800 number, and you can get their catalog.
Yeah, okay.
And their catalog has most of the books that I put in there, that I put the titles to. It's a fun catalog.
Oh,
Keep
here we
going.
go. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a fun catalog because it's got all sorts of weird titles, but they're like, for example, the pyramid, how to build it and how to use it. Dowsing for beginners. It goes back here to herbal therapy. It talks about living water. It talks about the rammed earth house, how to make an earth pond, raising chickens,
Interesting stuff.
you and the man in the moon, soil fertility, edible herbs, organic gardening. It's a fascinating,
very good.
it's a fascinating little catalog, and I think it's good just to have it around because it gives you an idea of what's available out there.
And which one's that one under the Acres one?
Acres. There's an 800 number there by Acres.
Is it like this
It's
one
great
right
big.
above?
Yeah, it's a great big number. Up
The
at the
800
top.
Oh, okay.
355.
Okay.
Yeah. Just call, and I think the catalog's free, and it just talks about magnetism. It talks about urine therapy. It talks about raising goats, homeopathic treatment of beef and cattle.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a fun catalog.
Interesting.
It's amazing. It's free.
Well, you know, it's not, you know, high
You can
tech. It's just,
subscribe
Well,
to
yeah,
it
but
too,
I mean, it's
guess.
got all you want is information anyway. So.
yeah. It's just, there's just so much fascinating stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to get into UFOs to find the fascinating
That's
stuff. Well, anyway,
Hmm.
that's what I wanted to cover.
One other thing, Dr. Mercola on his website, he mentions that he recommends that if you can actually find healthy food, that if you can eat that, you need very few supplements. If you
Well,
can
that's
find
true, but I think
food
that's,
that was healthy somehow.
I think most of us cannot do that. Number
Yeah.
one, most of us can't find healthy food. Most of us don't know what healthy food is. And most of us are beyond that point, I feel.
Okay.
You know, sure, if your mother had started out doing that before she got pregnant with you, there might be a chance, but I don't think that's...
Okay.
No, I think Dr. Mercola's website, I think he's done a great service.
He says he only takes about 3 or 4 or 5 herbs or pills or something.
Well, that's
a day.
fine. You know, he may get away with it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Well, we won't know the results till
Till he dies.
till he dies. But and that's fine if that's what fits him. His whole life is dedicated to his little business practice and his web page, and he doesn't have some of the other stresses some of us have. And that's just life. And I agree with a lot of the stuff he says. I don't agree with everything. I don't think we should live on raw food. I don't think we should all drink 2 quarts of, or 3, 4 quarts of water a day. And but anyway, I think a large percentage of us would do better without grain, but I think a lot of us tolerate grain just fine. But I think it's a great website to go to if you have questions about something, because he's got links to all sorts of different places and good information.
And what's his website?
Mercola.com.
That's it?
That's it.
How do you spell that?
Mercola.
Just like Marcola, the
Oh,
town
yeah,
here, only with
Except for E.
Right.
Yeah.
Mercola, okay.
Yeah, it's just a good site. If you have questions about vaccinations or sunlight or
Huh.
cod liver oil or
Oh, great.
it's a good website.
Yeah, I guess it's the most popular website on the web as far as the
Health news.
naturopathic thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, he's worked hard at it. He was out here in Portland a little while, a couple of years ago, talking. But he's anyway, lots of good information on the internet. But you know, you get some things you aren't sure about because you can read almost anything.
Yeah, you can.
Right.
A lot of things will work for one person, like you say, and then they won't work for the other.
That's right.
So
Yeah, that was
And some of the
that's why
medical
you do
stuff
need
and
to
there's
have some way to
limited too.
test.
Well, sure it is, but
Of
well,
what
if
they'll
you
tell
know,
the public. I mean, and then you can go down, like I go down to the hospitals a lot and I get on the doctor's web pages. You can do that. And it's amazing what you find there versus what you don't get to see.
well,
with the
that's
people.
true. But a lot of that stuff in the doctor's webpage, I think you just should not know. But I think a lot of it's medical.
I
But
don't know, I want to know.
well, okay.
Yeah.
But you can anyway. It's amazing what you can get.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like I have a patient that came in with he's got a severe cancer, and he had heard that if you use people with advanced cancer, if you use heparin, the risk of dying from it is much less. Well, with a little work on the internet, we found several articles that are out there that his doctor didn't know about.
Oh, that's
I connected with a doctor back in Vermont that had written an article, and we talked with him, and he says, "Oh yeah, it's great stuff." He says, "But the other doctors aren't interested. I go out and give a lecture, and no one comes."
My.
Oh, that's sad.
So anyway, yeah, there's lots of stuff there.
Wow.
I've never heard of heparin before.
Oh, I have.
Heparin's a blood thinner,
Oh.
and it's been around for a long time, and it's very commonly used to treat what we call deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary emboli, and things like that. Well, there's a clinic down in San Diego that's using it to treat burns, and you get these severe burns, and you treat them, and they don't scar.
My.
And
That
you spray,
is great in itself.
that you spray heparin on these burns and the pain goes away so that people don't get addicted to pain medication.
Wow, that's great. Is it a natural type of herb or what?
Well, it's not, heparin is a chemical that used.
It is a chemical.
It comes from pig intestine.
Okay.
Huh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean,
Things.
yeah, and you think, why doesn't every city? Why isn't this just part? Because you get a bad burn, what they do to you? You go to the hospital. It's the most painful thing in the world. They have to operate to cut the scabs off, and they have to keep you doped up on pain medication, and painkiller addiction is a major problem afterwards. And this guy sprays. Now I don't know if what he says is true, but it looks pretty legitimate. You spray heparin on this, and the pain goes away.
Wow.
You don't need pain pills. I mean, it's fascinating, but
Well,
anyway.
it's kind of amazing, you know, the different animal parts they use on your body.
Yeah, whoever figured out heparin, I don't know.
Well, the last time I saw you was like back in 2003. I had 2 surgeries. Well, I had colon problems. Well, what they did is, I forget the big, long name, but basically what they put inside me in place of my colon was a pig pouch, is what they called it. It was part of the pig. And it was a hide, and they only had 2 people in Eugene that they'd ever done it to.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
it
so
worked,
it's pretty interesting, the stuff that you can see and come up with.
Well,
Very
let's see,
amazing.
now, you have gluten problems,
I do big time.
and that's why you had the bowel problem. And as amazing as it is, what they can do to you, it's tragic that you didn't get the information you needed to avoid it.
A lifetime ago. Oh, and I still have to fight with all my doctors on that. So now what I've done, except I go to chronic fatigue clinic that is just absolutely wonderful in Seattle, but now I've learned when I list my allergies and stuff, I put it, I try to sneak it in small print, gluten sensitivities. But when I was actually in the hospital, I fought them on absolutely everything. And
See,
I
it's
had
so-
a
it's so-
wonderful surgeon
Yeah,
that
but see,
backed me.
It's so tragic that here you are, you just had your belly cut open, you're laying there, you feel terrible, and you have to fight the staff because you don't want to eat gluten.
I did have to fight the
Jeez.
staff. I had to have my family stand there and be
How
next to me.
awful.
And the medicines, because I
How
couldn't
awful.
take the pills at the
And
time. I had
then-
to have everything liquid.
Jeez.
Or
And then
crushed
bring
or
your
powdered.
stuff.
Yeah, I had to fight with everything.
The
I
trouble is
still have
there's
to fight.
such a tight tight rein on information. You can't get information anymore.
Well, it's
You
kind of
only
depends
get
what they want you to
what
know.
comes through the medical industry, and the other stuff is
Well, no,
you can find it on the internet a lot of stuff
Yeah,
times, but
that's where you
it's-
have to go.
Yeah, but it's just not open to the public. There's no.
Well, it is getting more and more because
It
of
is
the
getting
internet.
more.
Oh yeah, because of the
Yeah,
internet.
because of the internet, people are being forced to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, that's how I found a cure. My wife got this Bell's palsy,
Oh, wow.
and at the doctors they give you steroids, and they claim that if you take steroids you'll have it just as long as if you don't, but that's the treatment.
And then there's side effects of the
Yeah, and so I
steroids.
looked on the web, and it says it's a very common disease in China, and they give them the acupuncture, you know. So she went to the acupuncture. I think she went twice.
Did you go to Chinese one?
I think so. But he said, if you're not better in a week, call me back. And,
Oh, my
and anyway, she was better in a week from the second
Wow.
treatment. And so she was fine. But if she would have gone to the doctor, they would have given her something that wouldn't have done
Oh,
any
my
good.
It might have hurt her.
Yeah.
It might have hurt her. Okay, well,
Well, thank you.
you're welcome.